Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? Yay. So we're glad to have you here today. I'm Dawn Barnes. I'm with Virginia Cooperative Extension, one of the team members that have worked to bring this to you. Jon Vest is a co-worker with Cooperative Extension. We also have in the back from Agency on Aging, we have Shannon Hammons and Janet Brennan. And then we have our speakers, Eric Branscom and Brian Craig. You probably know them. If not, they'll reintroduce themselves. We also have the pastor of the church here at Topeka Church of the Brethren. So we're thankful for their hospitality. And I'm going to let him say a couple of words, and then we'll start with Brian.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Ted Turner, the pastor here at Topeka Church, and we are so thankful that we could host this gathering together. When we look at the things going on in the world today, there's so much evil. And, when you think about somebody taking advantage of older people and or less fortunate people or people maybe that just are easy prey, it really hurts, that somebody could do that to somebody else. But I'm glad that our county leaders are here to share some wisdom and insight with us today of how we maybe can defeat that or at least have the wisdom where we can recognize that and the things that we can do to keep ourselves and our families safe.
All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started today. Like Dawn said, I'm Brian Craig. I'm the sheriff here in Floyd. We're just going to kind of touch on scams today. We could sit here and just pick one type of scam and probably talk for hours and hours just on one. So we'll kind of touch a handful of the more common ones that we see here in Floyd County. And that way it gives you kind of an idea on how to protect yourself and what to look for. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Scams of today. Just a little background. Scams affect everyone. Data shows the FTC, or the Federal Trade Commission, received 2.8 million fraud reports from consumers in 2021. The Federal Trade Commission data shows that consumers reported losing more than $5.8 billion in fraud in 2021, and that's an increase of more than 70% over the previous year. It increased 70% from 2020. The trend is clear that fraud doesn't discriminate by age and that being digital first doesn't make you immune to scams. Age doesn't matter. In general, the older the victim, the more money that is lost. Those in their 30s lose an average of $5,570 in each in 2020, while those in their 40s lost $7,832. On average, the oldest Americans lost the most money to online fraud. Roughly 105,000 individuals 60 and older reported a combined $966 million in losses, averaging more than $9,100 per person. But it was those in their 50s who had the highest losses with an average of $9,864.
That's only those reported,
correct? That's only those reported. One thing that John's mentioning here is, a lot of scams go unreported because people are so embarrassed to report it. Please don't be embarrassed to report it. And we can touch on that here a little bit more, but the quicker we know about it, the quicker, the sheriff's department or the prosecuting attorney knows about it, there may be some ability to recoup funds, to recoup things that are, sent by mail or wired, but it has to be pretty quick when it happens. There are scams out there, way too many to list, and here's the following of just a few. Government impersonation, sweepstakes and lottery, robocalls. Oh my gosh, I got one on the way here. Robocalls. Computer scams, grandparent scams, investment scams, romantic scams. And one that's really not considered, a scam by the word scam, but one that's really devastating in our community is the family scamming family members out of money. So government scams, the IRS scam, the Medicare, the Medicaid, police scams, EMS, military, you'll see it and hear it, you owe the IRS so much money, contact this number now. No, you know what you owe, you know what you're doing there. And anytime you get these calls, you feel free to give us a call. If there is an issue, I believe the IRS, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, the IRS is still just doing mailers. If there is an issue, they're sticking to that pattern. The Medicare, Medicaid, those, I imagine y'all hear it all the time. They're trying to get you to, get this and, we'll make sure that this company pays for it or what have you. And I believe Shannon can probably touch on those a little better than I can. The police scams, these folks know how to spoof their number. So they can actually make their number look like it's the Floyd County Sheriff's Office and come up on your caller ID as the Floyd County Sheriff's Office. And what I mean by a police scam is they may call you and say, hey, we have a warrant out for your arrest. You need to wire us X amount of dollars or we're going to arrest you. I got news for you. If we got a warrant out for your arrest, we're not going to call you and let you know. We're just going to come visit. That's just the way it is. That's a safety thing. We just come and visit. Knowing that, that money, here in Virginia, it does not go to us. It goes, through the magistrate system to post bond. That's a whole different story. But, a lot of people get nervous because they're afraid, and they may even say, I'm Deputy so-and-so with the Floyd County Sheriff's Office. You need to do this now. EMS scams, military scams. Military is one I hear a lot, and they work hard on this military scam. And I'll just give you kind of a brief and quick description of how they usually work. So you'll get this random email, hey, my name's Brian Craig, I'm currently in Germany. Just needing somebody to talk to. Hey, I got a veteran. Everybody, most everybody loves a veteran, so you start communicating with them. You get this friendship going. It may be 3 months, it may be 6 months, it may be a year, whatever it may be. They may send you photos. They may send you family photos. And then all of a sudden they turn around and they're like, hey, I'm getting ready to get out of the military. I need some help getting back to the States. I don't have no money to get back. Can you send me $10,000, to ship all my stuff back to the States? Oh man, this veteran, I can't believe the government is going to pay for you to come back to the States if you're an American citizen. They're going to pay for you to. I was in the Army. I went from Oklahoma to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then I went back to Virginia. Everywhere I went, they paid to have my stuff shipped. And what they didn't, was because I didn't want them to. I carried it in my vehicle. So be really weary of that. They are very believable because they spend so much time with you. You become friends with them. These folks have nothing better to do. They just sit at home all day long, dreaming up these emails, and they'll send thousands of emails out hoping one person's going to bite. But if you bite on it, and Sally over here bites on it, it's the same person with the same photos, and that's not the person who it is. Sweepstakes and lotteries. Mainly these are sent by mail or by email. Easiest way to think about it, if you did not buy a lottery ticket and you didn't enter, you didn't win nothing. That's just the way it goes. The online soliciting, claiming you've won a prize. Everybody's probably seen that pop up on the computer. Hey, you just won a whatever. Wanting you to click on it. Do not click on that. One key thing behind a lot of these sweepstakes lotteries is they'll tell you just won $200,000, $2 million, whatever, but you got to send us $5,000 first to pay your taxes in order to receive this money. No matter what you do, don't pay up front. And I can tell you, construction fraud, Mr. Branscom can tell you, never pay a contractor up front. If they say it's going to cost $10,000 to do your deck and you give them $10,000, you just paid $10,000 and you'll be lucky even if you have a 2x4 sitting out there. So just be real leery of paying anything and everything up front. Someone who calls you saying that they won, but they need help for the upfront fees. What I mean by this is your friend calls you. Hey, can you help me out? I got to pay $5,000 in taxes. Can you loan me $2,000 so I can get this money? What money you getting? Start questioning it. Try to help that individual see through. Times are tough, money's tough. Everybody wants a little help, especially whether it's getting near Christmas or birthdays or what have you. And all of a sudden you just realize you may have won some money out there. And according to the North American Association of State Lotteries, once the ticket's bought, no money's ever required to claim a prize. So if it's one of those, hey, you gotta give us this money before you get your prize, right there is what the Lottery Association is looking at. Robocalls. How many of y'all like robocalls? Sadly, I kind of like some robocalls because sometimes I have fun. But they definitely get annoying. They are the most annoying scam because it seems like, you know, when these robocalls go out, you end up getting 4 or 5 in a day, and then you may go a week without any, and then you get 3 or 4, and it's kind of humorous, you know, if we're all sitting here and a robocalls go out, it may be 5 of us whose phones will go off within 3 or 4 seconds of each other, and it's all different phone numbers, but it's going to be a scam, it always seems like. Kind of how they work, just to give you kind of an idea, is they buy a list of phone numbers. Anybody can buy a list of phone numbers, and it's run through a computer software, and they send out millions of calls in an hour. So 3 to 5% of people on these millions of calls press 1 to get through. Then, of course, then it goes to an in-person call center, and then they make the pitch to steal money from you. Okay, so think about that. If millions of calls are going out in an hour, and they bought this, but 3 to 5% of those folks are pressing 1, and let's even say half of that 3 to 5%, or even maybe half of 1% of that 3 to 5 actually buy into the scam, there's money to be made there. And that's why they do it. You know, these things happen because there's money to be made. Computer scams, you know, the pop-ups, the link, you know, the phishing, the different emails, emails from friends that just don't seem right. Do the majority of y'all do Facebook Messenger? Does anybody do Facebook Messenger? And have you ever seen how you get a message that just says hello from one of your friends? And you're like, what in the world? That's a scam. Don't jump into that. That's somebody who's kind of cloned their account because, you know, normally that message from them is like, you know, how's the kids? How's the grandkids? You know, you going to the park this week? You know, are we going shopping? And then all of a sudden you just get this random hello. You know, so they've kind of cloned that, or, you know, they've done don't jump into those. And if you go through your messenger, you'll see it. All those same type of things. That's how they normally all start off is hello. And what I mean by the emails that just don't seem right. So a lot of times what can happen is somebody gets an email and I click on a link and basically that link gets a hold of all my contacts and will send another email out to all of y'all trying to get y'all into some type of scam or trap. So when you look at this email and it's talking about, you know, you just won $2 million or whatever, but you see it came from Brian Craig and you're like, now, wait a minute, you know, this is coming from Brian. He sent this to me, but that email don't make sense. Call that person or get off of that email thread, email them separately and just say, hey, what's going on here? And they're going to come back most likely and say, that's not me. That's not me. Don't click on anything. Don't touch anything. So, you know, what happens is it will grab your contacts and send information out looking like it's you to them. You know, it could be something as, you know, vacation rental, who knows what. But they're just trying to suck people in and they're using your email because you clicked on something to shoot out to everybody else is another way. You know, you'll see, you know, click here to receive, McAfee, virus protection, those type things. You'll see a lot of that pop up. Well, once you click on it, basically they're able to get into your computer and they can lock your computer down. And, you know, at that point, there's really not a whole lot that can be done other than just toss the computer or, you know, what have you. You know, you may be able to take it to some of these computer shops and they may be able to just completely wipe the computer and start you over again, but what can you potentially lose? But that's why it's so important to understand what you're clicking on, you know. So just be real leery of what you click on if it's not exactly what you're looking for.
Another one is your computer has a virus will pop up if you're on a page, and I did that one time, and it took my computer down.
Yeah.
I had to redo it. So, you know, you thought it was legit. It says your computer's got a virus. You know, click here to clean it up or whatever.
Yep, those are those pop-ups.
And that prime example, though, is the first level that they're accessing your information. That initial notice there on your screen is that now already accounted for your contact on that device. So it doesn't have to be a computer. Every one of us is carrying a computer in the back pocket. These are nothing but computers. And that's what I would like to stress in any of these situations as they arise. Take a break, step back for a few seconds, and think about the common sense involved with regards to what am I dealing, what is this going on right here? This just doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, take a break, step away from it, call the individual that may need to confirm the situation. Don't rely on any information that you haven't made personally contact with that individual. The Facebook is rough right now, the messenger, because so many of us, once it has occurred, it's already gone to that entire contact list, and all of us are now receiving it like it's the gospel truth from Brian. But the fact of the matter is, it's the scammers involved, and their interest is not to stop there. That's the first layer, and we'll talk about layers here a little later. But the whole part of scamming at this initial phase is just to get a confirmation on the line that they know as the scammer that someone picked up the phone, someone acknowledged on the computer, someone did something that there is a warm body there that they can come back and revisit. So that first layer is a collection of all those efforts and all those names that then get sold to the next layer up in the whole scam process. And we'll talk about that too.
John, if you just get a weird looking email and you open it, does that let them in to your stuff? Usually not. And we were taught, both Citizens has done educational meetings and things like this, and I think we actually have some various footage and educational materials to help you recognize fake emails or those emails that really aren't what they ought to be. If you see in your email list or in the title line a misspelling, or something that doesn't look like what you're familiar with, but it's very close. Very close doesn't cut it, folks. It's a scam. Opening up that email is usually not enough to start the process. The process begins with the click on the link or the reply to the link or whatever it may be is what initiates that base collection to start. I got an email before, it was from myself. And they said, we got your email, we got all your contacts, we cut your camera on, saw you doing this, you don't send us money, we're sending it to all your contacts. I'm like, go ahead, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I just erased it, I didn't click on anything. But how did they do that? I mean, it came from me. I got an email from Ted Turner with my email. And I opened it on my email.
And I wouldn't think that it came from you initially. My thought is, in the process of phishing, spoofing, whatever the various components are out there, maybe it's your involvement in an association, a pastoral association, or whatever it was, they got a list, or they got a group of names, and they didn't even realize they were sending it to you from you. Or they'll send it to the grandmother or the mom there on the couch, and the daughter or the son that they're going to tell you is in jail right now is sitting beside you. They're relying on that to be so.
Well, it was disturbing to get an email from myself.
What was your?
Yeah, I also sometimes if it's sketchy email, I will click on the sender, and the sender sometimes is a weird kind of email.
Yes.
That's not effective. If it says Microsoft Teams, and you just click on it, it's got to say something about Microsoft. It doesn't say AGCHT.
And that's another excellent way to check the validity of the email source, is to remember we can all hover. You don't have to click, but you can hover above that email or above those contacts. And if you see it's a string that's going out, it probably does reach all the way to India or some other international country that we can't reach out to and get things back from. So from a safety perspective, if you don't recognize it after hovering above it, ignore it.
That needs it.
Any additional on that, or?
So
All right.
Brian,
We can always come back. What's that?
Can you add to what you've got here? You know that you're taking advantage of persons, like something's wrong with your computer. If you'll give us your IP address, we can help you fix it from where we are. Can you talk about that too?
Well, I'm not an IT guy, so I'm not the greatest one to, but what I will say is if you see something like that happen, and, I don't know, some of y'all guys from Citizens may know it better, but, the first thing I would think to do is somehow get off the internet. Whether you unplug it or you're no longer wirelessly, and then find somebody who's very IT savvy that can kind of walk you through the process to make sure that they haven't locked in or, locked anything out yet or anything like that.
And just make sure that you don't let anybody have access to your computer from a remote site, right, John?
Correct.
From a remote site, because once, like you were saying, Brian, once they come into your computer,
Correct.
from a remote site, because once, like you were saying, Brian, once they come into your computer, they have access to anything and everything that you have stored there. And John, you were making a good point.
I was just going to bring up the fact that, as we travel to Starbucks with our wives, or we travel, all these different locations, and we see these young people with their computers up, and they're in these public places, and we think, oh, well, everybody else is there safely, responding over Wi-Fi or over an open channel. That is not the case. Most all of us that are practicing any type of computer usage in a public area have set up our Wi-Fi or accessibility to where it's encrypted and or doesn't allow others on. Because right now it's very easy as a criminal to sit down in this room right here, and we have computers open, we could all be having a nice conversation, and on my phone I could walk past, and many of you don't even realize that your phones are set up right now to actually process or pass information to mine if you haven't checked that off of your settings category. So in those public areas and things like that, it's nice to have a conversation with someone that is tech savvy. Maybe it's that, for me, it's my 19-year-old daughter, whatever it may be. But scams anymore are not reliant just on the older demographic. They happen to individuals all the way down the line. You saw, the 50-year-olds, $5,000 a pop. I can tell you individuals and family of mine employed that are affected, and it should make all of us angry. So just, it's real, it's happening, and all of us need to take a break, step back from whenever something like this occurs, and give us a few seconds to say, hey, I got more common sense than the person on the phone. Let's reach out to that individual and or whoever's being questioned, and let's see for ourselves if we can't disprove what's going on.
And just to kind of add to it, you can't always call Citizens IT Help Desk. If you have a question about it, they're used to troubleshooting. And our IT team has been trained on the phishing emails and how to spot them and
Correct.
what to look for. And they can walk you through the phone on, hey, yeah, that's garbage. Get rid of it.
Yes.
Do you guys still fix computers remotely? Because when you said don't let anybody have access, it's been years ago. I called IT and they're like, push this button, give me access.
But if
and then I could see them moving my screen around, but they fixed it. But I called them, they didn't call me.
and that's the difference.
Yeah.
You purposely,
Right. Yeah.
searched them out.
Right.
You knew this was legit. You knew that's who you wanted to go to. You knew you called.
They were in
Citizens
India,
number.
so I was still a little worried about it. But I did call them.
It can be nerve wracking when you're sitting there and you're watching your mouse go,
I
or just
know,
typing, and
right.
you're like,
I was just praying. I'm like, I hope this guy's considered.
Brian, I think Peter had a comment, or you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I got done on that. Microsoft, the problem with Microsoft. I called this number, it's like an idiot because I'm a computer. And then I didn't call straight away, but then my computer just stopped working. So I called the number like an idiot. Luckily, I managed to stop it in time.
Right.
It was I was nearly finished with it before, and then I took it down to a computer shop in Roanoke to say, this is what I've done, I've screwed this up. And there's other few, quite a few. I get 5 emails a day from McAfee.
Yeah, right.
Which I've been getting now for 9 months.
Right.
To say my McAfee account is finished.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've got to be careful, and of course, there is virus software on your computer and things like that, and those, some of them you do have to continue to purchase yearly or what have you. But that's where you really need to, if you're not that IT savvy, that computer savvy, seek out somebody who is and say, what do I need to keep this computer protected, and then go from there. I anything that pops up on that screen, I don't trust any of it, because you may be looking at how to pop popcorn, and then all of a sudden your McAfee shows up. Well, what's that got to do with, that? So just be very, very leery of how that works, for sure.
To be honest with you, I blame you lot. You should have let me know 3 years ago.
Now, this next scam here, this one here, years ago, it got a lot of money from people in Floyd County. This probably came, I guess probably started getting popular maybe 10, 15 years ago, somewhere in there, give or take. And it still gets people every now and then. So basically how this works is they call you up and they tell you a family member's locked up. And these folks have a way of getting information out of you that you don't realize you're telling them. So next thing you know, you mention a grandson, or you've, said my granddaughter, and then they key on certain words, and then okay, well, we've got your grandkid down here in, Miami, Florida. They took a trip. Whatever you do, don't call their mom right now. They're locked up. They need $3,000 bond money. You can get it in a gift card and send it here. You can wire it here. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you as a parent who loves your child, your grandchild, or whoever, your nephew, and that they're begging you, please don't get me in trouble with my mom or my dad or whatever. So, they go on that side of you. They target your heart, and the next thing you know, they're bleeding money out of it, to say the least. And but one good way to kind of stop that and satisfy that is, when they talk about, your grandson's locked up in Miami, whether that grandson's next to you or not. Well, let me get the information. What department you with? Okay. And then be like, it's kind of odd. My grandson's right here next to me. Click is usually what happens. Even if they're not with you, but it's just one of those things that's how they target. They spend 3 minutes on there, then they go to the next person. 3 minutes on there, they go to the next person. Then all of a sudden they've got $3,000 coming in gift cards. That's another way to kind of point out a scam is anytime that they want money, it's not send a check here, not mail something here. It's always get a gift card. Can't really track it. Me and Eric, we can't shut a gift card off. Once you've sent that gift card, we don't know, it's gone. If you do a wire transfer, there are some things that we can do depending on how timely it is. It's not too often that it happens, but once in a blue moon. Years ago when they would have to mail checks, mail money to places, that was a little, we were able to get some of that back because we could get the postal inspector involved and they could, pull a package or pull a whatever. But those days are gone. Now it's a clickable button. The money's gone. It's gone. There's no recovering it. But the grandparent scam.
Just to add to that, just a few weeks ago, one of these similar meetings, we had a guest, and that's exactly, these are professionals. When they call, she thought it was her she thought it was her granddaughter, sobbing, crying, so bad on the phone. She, well, honey, Megan, can you calm down? Megan, can you calm down? First thing she's already done is alerted them to what her granddaughter's name is. Well, Megan's next thing the phone gets passed. Megan's so upset she can't talk right now, but she is being held down here, blah, 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 and the whole thing starts to spiral from there. So just 3 weeks ago, Floyd County, it's happened. And all of us have the ability to step back, take a break, and say, maybe we should sit back at the next family event, birthday party, whatever it may be. Let's establish the safe word for this entire family. The safe word at the Craig's house is probably honeybee or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, in that situation, well, what ask Miss Mayor, I wouldn't even get the name. What's my granddaughter's safe word? Suddenly, hang that phone up and feel a lot better about it.
I think that's the key. You need to ask them more questions than they're asking you. I mean, they'll reveal themselves eventually if you ask them questions.
Either that or they just hang up, because they don't have time for it. And that's the thing, when these folks call me and they get a few words out of me and then, I realize it's a scam and I hang up. Each time they make a call and they get further, they get smarter. So each time they get better and better until they finally get to you, and all of a sudden now they've went through 40 people and they know exactly what to say, how to say it, how quickly to pull it from you, because each time these folks get better and better and better and better every time they make that contact. They take that next tier and they make that contact, and they get better and better at what they do. Finally, just like John said, they're professionals at stealing from you, and it's really all they're, it's what they're good at. Investment scams. Unsolicited investor calls you. I don't know how many times I've seen this. Oh, I got the latest and greatest. This stock's going to make it. Contact me, whatever it may be. They claim to be an investor or a broker. These folks are going to sound legit. They're just like any other scam. They're going to sound real. They're going to sound legit. They're going to throw this company out, that company out. They're always going to offer low risk, high return. Sorry, that's not out there. They may have professional looking websites. That's the other thing. Each time they scam somebody, they may make 20, 30, 40,000 in U.S. currency. And then what does that translate into whatever the country they're in? Even if they only get $3,000 from one person, that potentially could translate to $500,000 in their country or wherever they're at. So it would be amazed. You would be amazed at what just a little bit of money may do from here, but makes a lot there. And of course, if this is all they're doing, they're going to make their website look so good. But it comes back to, I think John was mentioning, you'll see some things that aren't spelled just right, or you may see things in it say U.S. dollar. Well, people around here, we don't talk about the U.S. dollar all the time. We just say, hey, you owe me $50. You don't owe me 50 U.S. dollars. So little things like that can kind of key, that you can kind of key on to help you out. High pressure tactics, these are salesmen. They're trying to get you to buy into something, just like, kind of go buy a used car. There's one thing I can't stand as a high pressure salesman. You got to do this, you got to do this. The best thing you can do there, because what they're trying to do is not let you make the right mental decision. Just say, hey, I'm done with you, and just walk away. Make sure you walk away. They may use celebrities for endorsements or images, but they're going to be fake. They may have, whatever actor on there saying, oh, this is the best thing ever. And, they just took a clip from something that they found and they throw it on there. They can't track these folks down for copyright infringements or, whatever the case may be. So just be real leery. You need to be the one to search these folks out. Don't let them search you out. That is one of the biggest keys to any scam, is if you're looking for them and you know that this is specifically a legitimate business and you're on the proper website, don't fall away from something else. Romantic scams. These are very common. Some warning signs, and what I mean by that is, as we all get older, or one spouse may pass away, and we're trying to figure out how to move on mentally in life. And romantic scams here, they're going to your heart. They're trying to get you to fall in love with somebody who's not there. They'll do anything they can say. So some warning signs of that, some key things to look for is, when they send you a picture and it looks like a model from a magazine, not an ordinary snapshot. Okay? You're not going to get that model that just happens to dial you up, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm in this great relationship. The person wants to leave the dating site and communicate in other ways. That's one thing I need to mention there
Is
too.
that what it is it usually happen on these dating sites? Or somebody, is that how it happens a lot?
Yeah, they'll get you pulled outside of it onto something else, because they're going to keep their profile up. So if they can get you off this dating site, one of the reasons they can get you off this dating site and think you're in this relationship, they still have that profile up trying to find other people to swindle and scam. So, they'll keep that going, but they want you removed from it. And then there's also some protections in some of these sites that they've got to get you away from.
But you're exactly right. That's one of the indicators, though, that let us know that it's actually a scam versus being something legit. Because the scammer wants to remove you or move off of that host site or off that location. They want to contact you personally. What's your personal what's your personal cell phone number? And let's talk over here. And that should be an immediate indicator as well.
Another big thing is, we've heard it to where they promise to meet you in person, and something always comes up. Something always comes up that they make an excuse to have to cancel or what have you. And a lot of times, what happens with these romance scams, and they may spend 6 months with you, they may spend a year with you on this. But then the day comes where something financially has happened. Their child got locked up, or whatever the case may be. They need money. Their mom's on life support. They got to pay the doctor's bills. All of a sudden, right now, right this instant, they need money. So they've taken that love that you've built with them, and now they're going to turn it into going after your money by saying, "Hey, somebody I love or something very important to me has changed, and I need money to fix this. Please send it to me." And of course, you're in awe with this person, you're in love with this person, or they're just the best friend that you have because they're always there for you. And then next thing you know, you're sending them, they may even say, "Hey, can you send me $100? Then once they get that $100, guess what's coming the next week? "Hey, I need $1,000. Hey, I need $500. Hey, I need $1,000. The next thing you know, within a month, you've sent $10,000 to this person in small denominations. So it just adds up quick. It adds up very quick. Before I get to the last, not the last slide, but the last scam kind of that we'll talk about is, we were talking about going off site. So years ago when I was in investigations, I worked this one where this guy had spent basically his whole retirement on this Boss Mustang that was on eBay. And they went off site for a discount. And the vehicle, I think, was in Winston-Salem, if I remember it correctly, was only in Winston-Salem. And, this guy sent this money, and all of a sudden he never saw nothing. Well, that car stayed on eBay and never came off. Well, the first key to the whole thing was when we looked into it, and I want to say the money went to, it was another country, I can't remember now, it wasn't the Cayman Islands, it might have been the Cayman Islands. But anyways, the money goes places that the U.S. has no ability to pull things back. The Canary Islands, Cayman, something. But anyways, so this vehicle was located in Winston-Salem, and there was palm trees in the picture. All the trees around were palm trees. But this was one of those dream cars for this person, for this individual. And it was a great price, really good price. It's too good to be true, most likely it's too good. But, so I understand the thing, the want of that vehicle. But one of the next key things is they, for a discount, for a 5%, 10% or whatever, let's get off eBay, let's get off PayPal and just wire me the money directly, okay? PayPal, there's protections for you. If you do things, whether it's eBay or even Amazon or whatever the case may be, there are protections when you stay there, but when you go off site, when you go off eBay's site or when you go off these sites, there's no more protection for you. eBay can't help you if, this person don't send you whatever you bought or what have you. So be very leery of the, I'll give you 10% off if you go off and you send me some gift cards or what have you. 10% is not worth it to fall through that. Family and friends. You trust them, you believe in them, you've known them forever. When they're down and out, zero of this matters. I can promise you that. There's nothing more heartbreaking to me and Eric when it comes to folks coming in and they've been robbed by their own family because they don't want to prosecute, but they need their money back because it's their retirement, or their family's lost their house. I mean, it is amazing how family and friends will swindle you out of your money and your cash because, once again, it's your heart. It's your love of this individual. Now, I'm not saying don't help family and friends out if they're down and out. Not saying that. Just saying be smart about what you do. Understand why they're down and out. Realize, and I mean, for that matter, figure out why they need the money. We get folks that come to the sheriff's office all the time. Hey, just passing through, I'm broke, I don't have no food, can I have some money? Well, everybody knows, first responders, a lot of times hey, whatever we can do. Ministerial, we won't even talk about the ministerial associations because they probably get this all the time. And because they know that it's a giving group. But they'll come by the sheriff's office all the time and say, hey, I need some money, I'm hungry. Well, most deputies will look at them and say, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll take you down to Slaughter's and buy you something to eat or hard. No, I just need the money. Well, no. And that's one of the things our deputies do is if you are down and out, some of them will. They'll take you down to Slaughter's or they'll take you to Hardee's, they'll buy you a meal or whatever, and then, you continue on where you're going. But the biggest majority of the time, and I dare say 95+% of the time, when we have folks that come into that sheriff's office and say, hey, I need some money, I'm just traveling through, I'm broke, I'm hungry, my kids are hungry, and you offer them food, they will not take it. They want that cash. And if they're that hungry, they're going to take whatever Joy Slaughter's cooking up that day. I know I would if I'm hungry. So, but anyways, just be really leery of your family and your friends. There may be other ways you can help them to where, it gets them out of that debt or it gets them out of whatever they got going on financially. And, you still may be able to, loan them some money, but try to help them figure out how to make that problem go away because this is somebody you love and you care about. If it's somebody who's going to turn around and scream and yell at you because you're asking questions, that should raise even more flags on it. Anything on that?
Older people fall for that a lot. I mean, I had my best friend's mother had a foster child. And when she got, 18, moved out of home, she kept coming back saying, well, I need money for this, I'm sick. And she'd take her and write a check down to the local market and they'd cash checks. And she managed to take $125,000 from Karen's mother and her aunt, just doing that type of thing, and Karen, she finally took the checkbook because her mother was in her 80s and didn't think, well, Judy couldn't lie to me about that, it just.
Well, they're targeting that heart. They're targeting that friendship. They're talking, like I said, you trust them, you believe in them, you've known them forever, but zero of it matters when they're down and out because they don't care. They have their one thing, whether it's a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, or who knows what that's going on in their life that drives them over that love that they have for you, but they know you love them enough that they can get whatever they need off of you. So, and that's why, to me, that's one of the more sad ones is because it's people that you love and you respect that are the ones that are basically destroying your life down the road because, once you hit retirement, there's no getting that money back. You can't go out and get you a 40-hour job at, however many, years old and get out there and get it done and build that back up. So
Brian, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'll share do elder abuse prevention with the New River Valley Agency on Aging. Shannon and I work together when we're talking about prevention. So may I go back to your question about the foster child and everything? In that situation, would you have seen that it probably took a number of years? And it's what we refer to. We usually hear it when we're talking with children. It's grooming, setting the stage, setting the groundwork. And it's what Brian was talking about. They're using the vulnerabilities of persons, their emotions, for one's own personal gain.
Yeah,
and here in we're here in Appalachia, we have cultural values, and not just Appalachian values, but we have other cultural values that tells us that we should help others, right, Ted?
Yeah.
We should help others, and it's the loving and the kind and the Christian thing to do. You know, it's who we are in our culture. But Brian's talking about, at some point, helping persons understand this information that we're giving you, what John's talking about. Look at this information, be wise, be smart, be educated. And
what helped out was, you know, she kept going to the same store, bringing, you know, checks for $300 or $500 or whatever, you know. And the store owner finally, you know, wised up and started calling her real daughter, and saying, hey, your mom's out here. She would go to all the neighbors asking for money because she didn't even have it. But she would go to her next door neighbor and say, well, you know, Judy needs medicine for, you know, diabetes or whatever. And people were giving them to her, you know, and they finally managed to get the neighbors to quit doing it and the stores to quit doing it, you know, and it was really a sad situation that lasted several years.
so those are indicators. When persons start seeing that, those are indicators that we watch out for and we look out for. In those situations, it is for one's own personal gain. And I'll share with you, you're talking about, you know, they're taking money. Last year in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the statistics show, and they capture statistics for cases that were investigated. Over $194 million was taken from our older adults, 60 years of age and older, and adults with disabilities between the ages of 18 and 59.
This probably happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. You know, it happened a long time ago. And, you know, it's just a scary thing when elderly people don't realize that they are being scammed. And,
So
you know, it caused a lot of conflict between the daughter and her mother. You know, she was saying, don't do this, Mom. And her mom would get mad at her, you know. Well, I'm helping her out. So, you know, it's just a situation that family members even need to know about.
So how do you help people? When you know that's in your community here or in other communities, how do you help persons? Like when you're seeing that it's happening, how do you help them? How do you help them recognize or realize that that's what's happening? Because that's the piece of it. How do we help
Like
persons?
Ron says, it's your heart. You know,
So get your heart.
Feelings of your heart.
It's your vulnerabilities, right? And what they little pieces of things, and it's happening in your own community. It's heartbreaking.
Yes.
National statistics show nearly $3 billion is stolen from our elders every year, and that's a conservative figure.
Yeah.
So your friend, or this person, where is the person now?
They passed away.
They
That's
passed
what I
away.
said. It's, you know, it's been a long time ago.
And hundreds of thousands of dollars taken from them?
Yeah, it was $125,000 that they could do,
Probably-
you know, but they couldn't do anything to get any of it back. You know, they
Well-
passed on, and you know, it's just it's a sad situation. She lived back in Czech, you know, back off, you know. Her daughter lived in Christiansburg, and you know, it was just a sad situation.
And that's probably a perfect segue from what Brian is sharing with us today, and then what Eric's going to be sharing. When you see these things happening, are there things that can be done? It is a felony here in the Commonwealth of Virginia to financially exploit an incapacitated adult. And I'm not, I don't know what your thought is, Eric. You know, I'm thinking of Paul Greenwood, who is one of our nation's leading presenters and prosecutors for elder abuse. He was a solicitor, he was a deputy district attorney in California. And his comment, when you hear him speak, he's very prolific. He's a attorney originally from England, and then came to the States and worked in that unit, that elder abuse unit. And he said, I don't need a victim's permission to prosecute a crime that has been committed. you want the persons, you know, who are the, and I say victims, those who have been affected by it. So you think about, and Brian can give you that as a perfect segue, you know, what can you do?
Well, and that's exactly right, because in Virginia, the theory that we work under, the legal theory, is that it's the Commonwealth versus whoever we're charging. It's not the individual. When a criminal charge, even though you're the victim of a crime, or somebody else might be the victim of the crime, any kind of crime is a crime against the entire Commonwealth, the entire state. So we don't need the permission of the person involved to step in for something like that. So what we do is that when we get reported that something happens, there are a lot of different ways we can approach this. I think a moment before you said you made a suggestion that you can't get it back, there's nothing you can do. Actually, there are things that you can do. And it's a matter of letting people know that there are things that you can do when these situations happen. For example, in the situation you described, if you've got someone that's taking all this money, on the one hand, we could possibly, look, depending on the facts involved, you could look and see, is this something that's being driven by drugs, some sort of addiction, which unfortunately in the vast majority of cases, it is a drug related thing. We have had for years a drug problem, not just in Floyd County, but this whole part of Virginia. We've made some advances in it, but it's still out there. It's all through society. It starts with the kids in school and or just other people where they work, and it passes through. And these drugs, particularly methamphetamine, which is what we mostly see in this area, it's highly addictive. And the best way I think I've heard that we have a drug court program, and one of the addicts best described it as when they're trying to quit and not take this, is that it's like you're underwater and you can't breathe. That's the kind of desperation they feel in taking that. And if you think you're in that situation, people will get pretty desperate to take a breath. And that's why they're looking at this and they're saying, look, whoever is the person most likely to give them the money. And that's why they tend to target family and friends and neighbors, anybody that they have a personal connection with. And overwhelmingly, it's going to be family that's targeted by people. And it's not, they can't help it. It's something to do, it's part of the addiction. But it is a crime, and we can help with that. For example, in the situation you were describing, if that was a drug problem, then we could lead to a drug investigation, and part of if we end up bringing charges against the person that's taking the money, then part of what they have to do, instead of going to jail, then they could pay restitution. And that could be part of a probation to put on them to pay money back into that. You may never get it all back, but it's certainly worth trying to do that, and you can get some of it back. In some of the other scams that Brian's been describing, it all depends on whether or not, if we can get the money back, is where are these people located? And we can't assume that they're all going to be somewhere else, because if we make that assumption, we're just kind of giving them an advantage. So I would always advocate, if there's any kind of scam that you get, report it. Report the scam. It may not lead anywhere. Probably 90% or more aren't going to lead anywhere. But every now and then, we have one that happens locally. We have a couple of examples of that I've talked about before. But one in particular, we had a situation where Floyd was connected to an international scam. The people were in a foreign country, I believe it was India, were sending out emails. People, they were targeting the elderly, people to 65 or more. They were targeting these people and hitting them with emails. They'd open up these emails and click on the link, and it would put some program on their computer that slowed it down. And then they would send an email to them afterwards saying, if you send us, it looks like you're having some problems with your computer. If you send us some money, like $250, we'll fix it for you. Now, what they were doing, so they were collecting all these checks, and the checks, strangely enough, were that there was a gentleman in Floyd who they used as their target. They advertised for someone to be their local representative. He signed up, and basically what happened is that all these checks would come to him in the mail. He would go down to the Bank of Floyd, deposit those, and then every month he was sending something like $30,000 to India. And an electronic transfer. The state police became aware of that, and they raided his house and gathered all this evidence. We weren't able to show that he had any part of it. That was the thing, is that for his part of it, he was being used as a stooge. The real criminals were the ones in India. It was referred on to the FBI and other federal agencies, and that's where it went after that. We really don't know. The state police were only able to do their part, what they found in Virginia, but we did find part of it and shut it down. We've had another instance where people are used as dupes. That's another part of the scam. I think that we've seen pop up, is that you can be used as like that gentleman was. There was an elderly lady in Floyd that was doing that, where people from that were trying to scam members in our military who were being shifted from one base to another. They were advertising to them, well, if you're going to go to live in San Diego Naval Base, well, here's a house for you. And they'd offer rent. And people in Norfolk that were getting transferred would go ahead and pay in advance so they had a place to go to. And sure enough, when they got there, there wasn't anything. But they were sending the money to this P.O. box in Floyd. And this lady that lived here was gathering that money, cashing the checks, and sending it on in these electronic transfers. And the sad part about that is, after the sheriff's office got the complaints, followed through on it, asked her to go stop, she didn't stop. And I think part of it was that she had these people that were friendly to her. They called her. They liked it. So she was in contact with them. She was living alone. Her husband was at Skyline Nursing Home at that point. And so these were people that it's not like, as near as we can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think she actually took any money out of it.
I don't think she did.
So she was just helping these people.
She felt that she was being helpful and things along.
If she would have stopped, I dare say the odds would have been she would not have been prosecuted. If she'd have stopped when we originally investigated and said, hey, look, this is what's going on. But then once we did that and she continued after our investigations, at that point, we had no option but to charge her.
And the whole idea with prosecutors, not so much to put her in jail, but to have a probation officer to tell her to stop, have the judge look at her. This was Judge Long, who was, of course, very firm and saying, you had to, and tell her to stop. And I think at that point, that's when it finally stopped.
She finally stopped, to our knowledge.
To the best of our knowledge.
But with that said, even with the romantic scams you described earlier, if you are being mailed items and asked, you may be actually approached by these thieves and are being offered a monetary stipend or whatever for your, this is legitimate, this is a job. We simply need you to repackage and mail on. You need to recognize that is a scam. They are, once again, the first layer's been satisfied, the second layer is now stacked on top, and they've got the third layer. They've got a person in a small hometown that can now repackage stolen iPods. Maybe never even look inside the box, but you're the one that is packaging those items back into a different box and shipping them in the direction they need to go. You have now been brought into the process, and this is where it becomes sticky because you're contributing.
I'm going to say that reminds me of one of the, we've seen a lot of these scams come over computers and phones, but I'm also beginning to see more that are coming in the mail. One that was brought to my attention just in the last week or so, somebody received something called it was called a distraint warrant, and it's alleged to be from the tax processing unit of the Virginia Tax Department. I'm sure you're aware of this. It's entirely a fraud. There's no such thing in Virginia as a distraint warrant, but people are being sent those, and it looks official. It's made to look official. You have this number, call, or and it goes and it lists a large number of things. We'll seize your property, we'll seize your bank accounts, we'll garnish your wages. It talks about all those things, and this is targeting all sorts of people. So, it's another type of fraud. The trick with that is that that's simply not how the IRS goes and collects them. Even though they do send things through the mail, they don't send you a warrant by mail. Warrants are served by this gentleman here.
And once again, it's the same thing too. So let's say you get that call and you're nervous. You're upset about it. Oh my gosh, is there really this warrant? Don't contact who they tell you to contact. If they say it's the IRS or the Virginia Department of Taxation, look the Virginia Department of Taxation up. Call them and say, hey, this is what's going on. Is there a warrant? Do I owe y'all money? And they're going to be like, no, this is not. Or the IRS is going to, no, this is not. So, but whatever you do, don't call the number that they give you or the email address that they give you or the phone number, or the link or the, whatever that individual says, this warrant is here for you. Don't use their stuff. If they say they're from Virginia Department of Taxation, go online, find the official government website, and go and give them a call. That's the easiest way to do it. Somebody calls you and says, Sheriff Craig's got a warrant for you, call me. Hey, we got a warrant for you? Yeah, as a matter of fact, glad you're home, or no, we're not. It's going to be that easy. But don't let these people scare you into thinking. Reach out. Call that group if you are that, if you're that nervous. If you're not, then don't worry about it. Don't call it. But if it is keeping you up at night or whatever because you think the Virginia Department of Taxation does have a warrant for you, find their official phone number, call them, tell them this is what's going on, and let them say, no ma'am, no sir, this is not the case. Please sleep well tonight. So.
And what I was going to say, one of the things that we're seeing is that, people over 65 are generally targeted a lot more in many ways because they're more likely to be at home. They're more likely to be homebound, or to be home and alone, and so in many ways more vulnerable to that sort of suggestion. And I was reading an interesting statistic that out of all the calls that were made, that it was an interview with one of the scammers that was caught. And he said that he was working a scam that involved doing it elderly, that 1 in 50 would respond. 1 in 50, that he could count on, about 1 in 50 that would respond to him, and he could lure them in. So if there were for younger age groups, it was about 1 in 100. But still, like you said, they make millions of calls. They just press a button and make multiple calls at the same time. But it's a number that's disturbing, but it brings everything that we talked about here right into Floyd on a daily basis, multiple times per day.
Well, and sadly, going off of what he's just talking about, the statistic, I hadn't heard that. So if you have a 1 in 50 chance of hitting a lottery, does anybody know what it takes to hit the lottery in Virginia? It's 1 in multiple millions and millions. So you have, I'm not telling y'all to become scammers now. Come on. But, if they've got a 1 in 50 chance, it's a whole lot better than buying that $1 lottery ticket, ain't it? Whole lot better. So that is very interesting.
Yeah, that's what they were working on. So the main thing is that I'd like to talk to you about is not so much what we've covered here, but something that's kind of with the family and friends. That's something that I've seen a lot just in the past couple of years. We've had something in the nature of triple the number of these kind of financial abuse of elderly just in the past couple of years because we're seeing, I think, because of the pandemic, but we're in the worsening economy. Mostly it seems to be through power of attorney. Is there anybody here that has a power of attorney? Okay, well, I can tell you what, generally speaking, a power of attorney is a very useful thing to have. But the trick is that they're being abused. And a lot of people that are resisting getting them until they're getting on in years are then kind of finding that they're not able to take care of everything. And then someone in the family, usually that I've seen has some sort of drug addiction or some other issues, or some friends, maybe some like that are approaching and say, well, if you take over, I give you the power of attorney, you take care of things for me, and then when I die, you can have everything. I've seen that scam with a lot of people several times. And I don't know if it's so much an organized scam, but it's something that people are certainly doing and taking advantage of people that are on in years. And what's happened is that a power of attorney, when you sign one, a general power of attorney gives someone the right to act entirely in your place. So sign your checks, sell your property, sell your house, sign over your cars, cancel your life insurance, any of those things. Get into your bank accounts. All of that can be done with power of attorney. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do one of those, that you do one with someone that you trust and someone that you really can rely on. And like I said, they are very useful and they're important, particularly as we have issues with people having dementia, so it's important to have a power of attorney in place. But we are seeing them abused. And if you see someone in the family that you're like in a family where one of these is going on and you suspect there's some abuse, please report that. That's something that can be investigated because the power of attorney is not without recourse. It's not just an open-ended license to steal. Someone who has the power of attorney has a responsibility to act in the person's best interest. So if I give Brian a power of attorney to act on my behalf, and he goes off and he decides he's going to write a check and buy himself a new car. Problem is, if he's buying the car for me, that's one thing. But if he's buying the car for himself and he's running around in it, then he's violated that responsibility, and that is a type of embezzlement. We can prosecute for that, and we can grab those assets and sell them and give them back to the person that had them before. So there are things that can be done. The trick often is to act quickly if you see something going on, and even if you suspect, it's better to ask and to look into it rather than to wait until it's too late and not everything. One of them, the heartbreaking case we're investigating at the moment involves that waited too late to bring it to anyone's attention. And it looks like the entire estate has just been removed and people left penniless. So it's important when you have any kind of suspicion that something is going wrong, there may be something we can do. So it's better to go ahead and report that, and then we can approach that and see what we can do. I can't guarantee that we always can, but we certainly can look into that. The one final bit of advice I wanted to add to this is that in doing power of attorneys, a lot of times you see people will just have something called a general power of attorney or a durable power of attorney. Those are things that just give someone across the board access to everything. It's something that exists in Virginia law that you can use that is not used as much, but we should use it more, called a springing power of attorney. What it means is that it's a contingent. It says that this power of attorney doesn't take effect until X happens. So I'm hospitalized, I'm declared incompetent, or something else happens, or I've disappeared, or whatever. So whatever, but you can have it as contingent so that people can't just come in and say, you can have it as that there's a family meeting, these 5 people in the family all say that this should happen. You can do anything, you can set up anything like that so that there's a safeguard before something kicks in. So you don't have to give someone just a blanket authority to take everything from you, to take over everything at once.
What was that called again?
It's called a springing power of attorney.
Eric, can you specialize that, like medical power of attorney and financial? Different people on your finances, different people on your medical decisions.
Yeah, you can limit your power of attorneys. You can actually have them so that they're limited to strictly. I'm going to give Ted my power of attorney, but he can only pay my electric bill. So, or you have medical power of attorney where people make medical decisions for you. So you can limit them if you want to, and that's another thing that we probably should be using more of. See, there are lots of forms on the internet for the general power of attorney, and that's why people tend to go to those. But that's where there's some trouble in that. But we should be looking at these more limited, more specific things would help alleviate a lot of this problem and alleviate a lot of this abuse. But that's the main thing, is that reporting is the key to getting this done. Even if it's someone in the family, I want to emphasize that just because Ryan and I get involved, it doesn't mean that that your nephew or niece or somebody is going to go to jail. It just gives us, we may be able to step in and help get things right, get things back on track without necessarily causing a huge problem in the family. It's better to ask and find out along the way, because if we wait until it's too late, then there's very little we can do except think about how sad it was. And The sad thing for me is to see all these situations where we could have helped, but we didn't get a chance to.
And Eric, comment please. Just because someone develops an advanced medical directive, which is a power of attorney, or screening power of attorney, it doesn't mean they give up their rights to be able to make decisions.
No, doesn't mean to give up your rights at all. You can always, and the person can always revoke that at any time. So that's not a problem. It's something that if I give Ted my power of attorney and then I decide next week I don't like it, then I just do what those things, scratch it out, say revoked, and it's gone. It's done.
So is it against a lawyer the best?
That's probably the best way to structure something. It can be done by other forms, and we'll try to put together things where people can go to find things that are more addressable. But that's, of course, a lot of people when you talk about going to a lawyer, you worry about how much it's going to cost. But I think there are people in the community. We're trying to get something together where people do more of that on volunteer or low cost basis to try to take care of it, because it's a growing need and it's something that we're seeing that it could just be so easily fixed by just taking care of a couple things in advance.
So Tim, would it be helpful to know certain resources? If you or someone you know would need assistance with developing them?
Yeah. Like Eric was saying, think somebody in the community that could help with that. More of the cost of having to go to a lawyer. Most people in that position probably don't have a lot of money.
Exactly, and a lot of people worry about the cost.
Yeah.
That's always a concern. Of course, cost of everything are going up. So same thing with attorneys, I'm sure.
So there are a few entities that you can turn to. Southwest Virginia Legal Aid is one entity for persons who meet the income eligibility criteria, and usually that is 200% of the federal poverty guideline. If persons aren't eligible for legal aid, they will help with simple wills, advanced medical directives, powers of attorney. But if persons don't meet that eligibility criteria, you can actually find an attorney through the Virginia Lawyer Referral Service. And what they will do is they will, you pay $35 up front, and they will help you connect with an attorney in your area that will help you kind of give you an idea of what to do. And for that $35 that you've already paid up front, that attorney will consult with you for 30 minutes. And at the end of 30 minutes, if you want to retain them, they'll have to tell you what the cost is and what they can do for you. And I'm telling you, Eric, you probably can, to consult with an attorney for only $35 for the first half hour, that's pretty reasonable.
Well, and it's all over the place. Some attorneys do it for free. Some attorneys charge ridiculous amounts for that. But I mean, there's not like there's a set fee for things for attorneys, because there's no easy way to go and check. So it's worth calling around and seeing. And it's perfectly fine for anyone to want to call my office and get some guidance on some people in the area that we know do this kind of work. We'll be glad to give you a list of people that we know that are in the immediate area. They're not necessarily employed, but there's some employed and then someone right nearby, like Patrick, over the line into Montgomery, some in Hillsville, depending which part of the county you're in.
And one other thing that we've come to know from an advocacy standpoint, Ted, let's assume that you want to do an advanced medical directive, but you don't have somebody to name as what they call the attorney in fact or the agent, but you want to put your wishes in writing about what you want and what you don't want for your health care. Help me if I'm misunderstanding here. If you don't have somebody that you can name, you can actually construct that document and put all of your wishes for your healthcare decisions in that document. It's best you have somebody,
Sure.
But that document can actually speak for you when you're not able to speak for yourself.
Where would it be filed, to the hospital or doctor would make access?
No, usually if you just have one that you've signed, most of the time they don't even need to be notarized. But if you have one that's signed, and if it is notarized, it's so much the better. If you get it signed and notarized, then you just have to have that document. It doesn't need to be signed particularly, but it's best if you have that, to have that in multiple places.
But if you don't, in this case, she doesn't have any family besides her husband.
Mm-hmm.
No nieces and nephews or anybody. So how, if she was incapacitated, how would anyone know that document exists?
In those circumstances, it's usually best if you have an attorney because they can file it in their office. And that's and they would keep it in their records, and they have to keep their records, those type of records, for many years. So they would be available for that. And some of them can be filed in the circuit court clerk's office. So that's another thing that can be done.
We have also seen on calls for service from our group in EMS where we get there and there's whether it's a do not resuscitate or something with the medication when we walk in, because one of the things that everybody looks for is, okay, what has this individual been exposed to, or what's going on in their life? What can we not administer that's going to be a bad reaction with this, or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden there's a do not resuscitate or a, who knows what, and that may be a good place for that letter to be, for the potential, the odds, that somebody may see that. Hey, EMS, please open this. Sheriff's office, please open this if you see this letter. That type of thing. So that may be another way with folks who don't have somebody there to say, hey, this is going on.
And the advance directive, you never want the original document to get out of your hands with the ink signature is what we refer to. Copies are accepted just as well as the original document. So you can give it to your physician, you can file it with the hospital, and you can make copies and give that to them so they'll have it on file. And we encourage those things, the durable power of attorney, extending power of attorney, advanced medical directive, because of this. Because if you don't have something, what or who's going to speak for you? In the absence of an advanced medical directive and somebody making decisions for you, the Code of Virginia allows for what I refer to, what many people refer to as lineage of kinship. The doctor can turn to certain individuals to make medical decisions for your health care in line of kinship to you. So the first one for you would be your spouse. Well, it would be guardian, but if it's not a guardian, spouse, adult children, and it doesn't say the oldest adult child, it gives a lineage of kinship. But those persons are making decisions for you. When someone's the agent of a power of attorney, you're giving them authority to make decisions for and on your behalf, so that document is your voice. It's accountability.
Living wills. And living will, I think that is important.
That's right, and there's living will. They're also known as advanced medical directives. They're essentially the same thing. They basically. There you go.
We went to Israel several years ago, and I carried living wills, our living wills, in my Bible.
There you go. That's good.
I was going to make sure.
Handy and somewhere where people know where they can find it.
Good deal. Have you learned things today? Things that as you came in the door, you're leaving with new information this afternoon? Have you picked up some additional tips and all? Our goal today is not to scare you. It is a scary time. With what you've heard our sheriff and our Commonwealth's attorney mention, it is a new day and age. And Brian talked about some statistics that jumped in 2020. And the pandemic really got the ball quickly rolling. And we can't get it stopped. The best way we can get that ball to stop is to talk to you. To where Jon has been the brainchild, and you all are chief investigators, I will tell you. You've got in the bag and you found the candy. So you are good investigators today. And I've watched you over here. You've went through the bag. You found the most critical piece that we've got to give you today. But Who knows the jingle to Kit Kat? Yes. Give yourself a break. You know, you've heard John mention that. It is so important. And the piece of candy was, we wanted to see how quick you would find it in the bag. But secondly, it's a mnemonic. It helps you remember why you were here today. You know, you've heard from the conversations, thieves are out there to daze and confuse you. They might call you close to bedtime. They might ring your phone early in the morning. The barometer begins to tick upwards right now. Why do you think that is? Why do you think fraud is getting ready to jump the charts here at the end of the year? Christmas. It is. It's the holidays. And why is that? Why would thieves like now more than ever to start preying on you? Why? You're busy. You're busy. You're on the plane or you're in a car to go visit family. You're baking. You're getting gifts. And oh, somebody just got me something, so I need to turn around to the store and get them something in return. You're busy. Your mind may not be as sharp and in tune, and thieves know that. As John mentioned, I left mine back there. Your smartphone is your computer. And thieves love this device because it is with you 24/7. It stays, except with mine, it's back there where it shouldn't be. Should be with me, but that's okay. The sheriff has it. He will watch it for me. Oh, okay. We know he's not guarding my phone. He's guarding the candy. But thieves love that device because it is with you in the car. You have it in your purse. You have it in your pocket. You have it when you're in the grocery store, chances. You put it on your pillow at night or charge it at your nightstand. You are right there ready for them to grab. And I wanted, Brian talked a lot about the government scams. And most everybody in here, you participate in the Medicare program, correct? You have your Medicare card and your insurance. I will tell you, your Medicare card has more value on it than any line of credit that you could get through a bank or a credit card company. It is limitless. And when I say limitless, I'm going to share a couple of numbers with you. Each year in the United States, the beneficiaries work through Medicare, going to your doctor, getting bills paid. $800 billion is transacted out of the Medicare system to pay for your health care and your peers all across the United States. $800 billion. Out of that $800 billion, approximately, and you're going to hear me say approximately, this is what Medicare can estimate conservatively, $68 billion is taken fraudulently. So that's a huge number. And the way that it gets taken, as Eric and Brian mentioned, is people try to fish that card out of your hand and get you to say it over the phone or put it on an email and ship it out. You've got a little thing in your, and I noticed nobody picked this up. They went for the Kit Kat. So, here's the next thing in your bag. But this is a little sleeve that says guard your card. It's a great way to stick your Medicare card down in here. And it's a handy little reminder. Think before you give out that Medicare number. That's what thieves want, because that number, they can go to town. It has a limit. It is getting really, really bad. And Virginia, as you know, a couple of years ago, started handing out, there was that whole new launch of the Medicare system, and they took away the Social Security numbers and they gave you a kind of a generic, non-identifying number, which was a great thing. But Virginia was the first state, one of the first states. So fraudsters really jumped on our backs, because if anybody's going to possibly give it up, it's like this new card. It's the first time in the states that Virginia launched this thing. So there was a lot of learning that they could get in and dig, but they're still after it. And people are still giving them out. That's why thieves, it's $68 billion industry. It's huge. But, one thing is I ask everybody to do is, when you get your benefit statement, Open it up and look at it. Does it match where you've been, what procedures, labs, hospitalizations, and so forth that you've had done? Does anything look out of place? And if it does look out of place, don't worry. There's help for you, and that is the Senior Medicare Patrol. There's this, and I think there's a magnet in your bag of information. This is the Virginia Senior Medicare Patrol. Every state has them. But they can help you if you detect something. I didn't ride that ambulance to Abington, last month. I was in Florida. I don't understand how I'm being, shown up, that I'm being billed for an ambulance from Abington going into Tennessee. Something is probably wrong. And don't just sit back and think, well, what's it going to matter to me? I didn't do it, just nobody's going to worry about it. That could be one of the first triggers. That could be one of the first triggers that someone has got your number somehow. And you may not remember exactly when you might have had your card out, that someone could have taken your number and then they're starting to bill for it. So please look at those statements. Write down when you're headed out to the doctor, whether you keep it on a day planner by your computer or in the kitchen, and then pull that statement when you get it and compare and contrast. Does it all match? If it doesn't, report it. That's the first line of defense.
Shannon,
Yeah.
the current scam that we've heard of in just recent month and a half was the Medicaid Medicare scam. That I was made aware of was simply the caller, the scammer, called in, said, we show that we haven't, we're not sure or unaware of your existing Medicare card. You need to verify this number so you know whether or not you have your new card or your old one. And that is the scam they are working right now in Ford County with,
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the best thing to do.
So second call just yesterday. It's real, it's happening.
It is.
Most of our cards, a lot of this program was addressed early on, earlier this year. It's had just enough time to fade from memory as to where do they put the card? Where do I go to look to verify my number? And they're concentrating on that so that you can, in the interest of being in a hurry and not taking your break and stepping away from it for a moment, that you relay that information to them.
And there's been various iterations of, trying to send you a laminated card.
They mentioned that yesterday.
And that is because you're thinking, wow, it's laminated, it can't tear. It's a paper. Your Medicare card is a paper. It'll wear if you don't keep it tucked away nicely. It'll get dirty and it'll kind of be a crumpled up mess if you don't keep it tucked away nicely. So the iteration of we'll send you a laminated card. We just want to get your number so we can get everything printed out accurately for you. And you're thinking, oh, how nice that somebody would take the time to want to send me a laminated card for free. It wasn't free, folks. They got your number and you'll never get a laminated card in the mail.
But anyway, I told her that I knew it was a scam and I was going to tell everybody I knew.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. That's the best way is don't give out that information and kind of guard it. Guard it like a credit card. Treat it like a credit card because its value is limitless on it.
How do they take that number and turn it into money?
They can actually, if they get a name, they get your card number, they get an address, they can actually bill. Medicare as a provider would bill for reimbursement. And one of the biggest things is genetic testing. There is probably about less than 1% of the population that qualifies for that, but it has a price tag at $25,000 a test. And they can certainly go for that. Medicare
is like a medical facility and bill Medicaid.
And they'll work, they'll get your name, they'll get your address in that conversation, and then they get your card number. So they can create the billing to submit it to Medicare. There is no drone flying with you. Medicare does not have a personal attendant that's watching you over your shoulder. They only know what shows up at the office. and they're as good as paying out the bill if everything matches. Genetic testing is one of those that you have to have a physician's order, and you have to have a medical diagnosis that would render you having a genetic test. If it doesn't have those two things, Medicare kicks it back. And if you've given out your number, it can show up as a patient responsibility of $25,000 because Medicare has denied it. Now, you're not going to be on the hook for that. You definitely need to look at these benefit statements. If that is showing up, get on the phone quickly with SMP. What you can do in Virginia with this non-identifying number is you can request a new card. You cannot ask me, you can't ask Dawn or John to help you make that call, or will you just do this for us? Medicare is going to hang the phone up on us. They want to speak to you, and they are going to go at lengths to verify that you are who you are. But if you speak with them, they will get you a new number. Now, the old number, they're going to set it over here and they're going to watch it light up. And then they're going to try to nab who is pulling that number to try to bill on your old card. But you can solve the problem. As Eric said, timeliness is everything. Don't wait and think, well, I don't know if I have any choice or options. You do. And it's in your materials here that you can request a new card, but do it quickly and then continue to monitor and watch that. The other things that were mentioned that I wanted to kind of just spend a brief second, and we're going to watch a video about the gift card scams. You know, back in 2020, when we thought the world wouldn't get any crazier with the scams, the dating scams just blew apart. It is the #1 scam in the United States today. It has just escalated to its peak. The average losses are about $2,600. If you only lose $2,600, be glad. That's all you got taken for. Most cases with dating scams are 5 figures plus. You know, and it's like Brian had mentioned, there's going to be a crisis. There will be, you've lost a job and the mortgage, you can't pay the mortgage, or the car that you're getting ready to go up and see this person in Floyd, they're getting ready to repossess it because you're not able to make the payment. And what do you think that person that's fallen in love is going to do? They're going to wire that money because your heart's attached. You don't want to lose this person. Once you send that money, the person's going to be gone. And the worst case happened in 2020 that totally changed the dating world. And I'm not telling you if you're dating online to shut it down and walk away from it, but be very careful. As Brian mentioned, when folks never want to meet, there's always an excuse. There's a medical, there's a financial, I need you to help me pay something. Walk away, walk away, walk away. But what happened in 2020 is we talked about social media. Criminals are actually going into Facebook and Instagram and Twitter accounts that a lot of us have. And if you don't have, chances are you may be getting ready to log on and take your first launch with social media. There's nothing wrong with that. But as Brian said, just watch. Be careful. Don't just respond to the first thing. But they actually took an individual in Michigan, Tom Ernsting, and you're going to see his picture in the handout that we've got for you. They took a real person. They left his name real. They left his hometown and state of Michigan, and they set up a profile on him. This was not just, the stock photo or, an unknown soul. They took a real living being in the United States. And this was a crime committed out of Nigeria. So it didn't even happen in the United States, and bilked women's out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this man suddenly got tapped on social media with these very threatening messages from these women. How dare you take my money? And he didn't know what was going on, and come to find out upon investigating, his identity had been compromised off of his social media accounts and was used to create the profile to commit the crime. So just be careful with social media. Never, never underestimate that somebody can look at your accounts and see where you are, names of grandchildren, names of pets, a death that might have happened to you or a loved one, with the grandparent scams and a child, Michael is graduating Floyd High School and he's on his way to Myrtle Beach. It's the easiest way to commit a grandparent's crime because the person can look and see you've posted about Michael's down at Myrtle Beach. So it can become very real to give you the call. Michael's in trouble. We've got him down here in Myrtle Beach. And he might not be at your side. He might actually be down at Myrtle Beach. So be careful. It's to shock you. It's to get you to say, oh my gosh, what do I need to do?
And it becomes more realistic. It becomes more realistic every time you're building a 5-layer cake and they are frosting it with every layer.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. With the passing of the loved one, the condolences on Facebook. Oh, we're so sorry. Here's this, what happened.
Yeah.
Then with the background pictures and the acknowledgement of family, they simply do a Google search for the obituary online.
Yeah.
Now they know parents, grandparents,
Yeah.
Children, grandchildren. So now they approach with the phone call. 3rd layer cakes being iced up here.
Yeah.
Oh, such and such is in jail and such and and you say, well, Megan, I can't understand you, and suddenly now they know that it's Megan that has your main interest. The whole time they're building and accumulating the information. They're professionals at it.
Exactly.
And if you don't step back away from it,
Yeah.
and that's the whole purpose of my interest in this meeting today. Is for every one of you to come and educate. You're sitting here looking. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We have Christmas and the holidays. If you're like the Nichols crowd, you're claiming you got 100 birthdays between here and Christmas. Every one of us has an opportunity to sit down and make your family members aware of something that you learned today.
Yeah.
And pass that along so that we're all more knowledgeable.
Exactly. Just be real careful with social media. If you, and we've mentioned it in the previous 2 town hall meetings, if you're getting ready to go travel with your girlfriends or your church group and, we're going to Kentucky to go see the Ark, don't put that up on social media. Wait until after you get back and throw up your pictures about the Ark, because criminals can even locally know you're away from home. You're in Kentucky tonight. So be very careful and timely how you use social media. Think before you act on that, because people can get in there and they can copy photos, save the images, they can upload them, and no one's the wiser. And you don't know until after something's happened, how in the world did they get this? Speaking of social media, speaking of gift card scams, and speaking of the holidays, I wanted to share a video with you that kind of talking about John's 5-layer cake. This one is a whopper. I mean, it has so many layers to it. And we always think about why gift card scams, and we heard that today. It's not really traceable. Once you buy it and once the scammer gets the identification number and the PIN number, they can move that money. There's no bank involved. There's nobody else. It's you and the criminal, and you've got your money ready to go in their hands. So I want you to watch this and pay attention to the various layers. Pay attention to all the dynamics that roll. This happened in Rochester, New York. And it's a pretty scary situation, but I want you to look at the value of trying to claim a prize, and then ultimately how it went down, how believable it was.
It's the time of year for giving and for taking. Law enforcement agencies around the area are advising everyone to beware of anything that may seem like a scam.
But as Nicole Ford shows us, a woman in Beaver County didn't realize her Christmas miracle was a sham until it was too late.
The holiday season started with Cassie Connor believing that she'd receive hundreds of thousands of dollars to surprise her family with a Christmas miracle. But that all ended here at the Rochester Police Department after she said she was scammed out of her life savings. It's not out of the ordinary to find Cassie Connor scrolling through her phone inside her home in Rochester. On Friday, her phone pinged with a message from a friend on Facebook.
She told me hello and everything, and she says, I am at the top of the world. And I said, why? And she tells me that she got this grant money.
But the person behind the Facebook message wasn't actually her friend. That person told Connor through text messages that she qualified for a grant of $200,000. All she needed to do was send gift cards for the handling fees and tax.
500, 500, 500.
Over a dozen gift cards now empty, and Connor out over $5,000.
I had to break down and tell my son. And he said, Mom, it's a scam.
Her raw emotion evident as the scammer keeps calling for more money. During the holidays, police say the elderly tend to be the target, and you need to watch out for anything out of the ordinary on social media.
My grandkids are 12 and 14, and I always give them Christmas money. Now I don't have no money to give them. I don't have any money to give my son and daughter-in-law.
While the police continue to investigate her case, Connor wants her mistake to be a lesson to others.
There's a lot of senior citizens, friends of mine. I don't want them to get scammed because I was stupid and did it.
After Cassie Connor found out this was a scam, she called her friend she'd been messaging on Facebook. That friend says she knew nothing about it. She went to the police department and filed a report after she says her account was hacked. In Rochester, Nicole Ford, KDK News.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? $5,000, that was a life savings that lady lost. And it was a social media scam that caused that to take place, didn't it? You learn shortcuts over time. Just unhook rather than try to take it and cut it off. But that was pretty convincing, wasn't it? That a friend tells you, I'm on top of the world, I got this grant money, and it can help you too. Right around the holidays where she might be struggling to want to do something nice for her family, and somebody used the ultimate pitch that tied her. It's believable, wasn't it? It was your friend telling you, I'm on top of the world, but it really wasn't a friend to do that. So be very, very careful with anything like John, and you've went through and found your Kit Kat bars. Give yourself a break. And give a break away from the person on the phone. And this lady over here mentioned just hang it up. Sometimes it might seem impolite, but it's better to terminate the conversation and don't go down a rabbit hole that you're probably giving out information that you don't realize. And then by the time that it becomes top of mind, it's probably a little bit too late. One thing that I want to end with is just to be aware, we haven't really had a chance to talk about it with our other groups, but this is being televised through Citizens on their public access channel. So it's important to mention it. When you give out an address, you may think, well, you know, I didn't give out my credit card number. Shannon said, guard your card, don't give out your Medicare number. So, that's nothing to worry about. Well, years ago, in a different day and age, it probably wasn't anything. But thieves with technology today, if they have your address, all they do is go to Google Earth. And many of you know what Google Earth is. It's a nice way that you can, if you've got an address, it will take you from the planet and it will zoom down on your house or whomever's house, and you can physically see what it looks like. You can tell if it's a brick colonial. You can tell if it's a white siding Cape Cod. You can tell if there's a church nearby. Sometimes it's pretty realistic. They don't update it, you know, but periodically, sometimes you can even see the car in the driveway. And you can turn that thing around and you can zoom in and look at the front of that house. You can go down with your cursor and you can see if there's a school down below you. Thieves can use your address that you give out to ultimately scare you to death and commit a crime that if you don't give up this money, will break the red door down on the front of your house. And you're thinking, oh, good Lord, how did they know that I had a red door on the front of my house? It's not that they're potentially outside on the street looking at your house. You don't know. And what should you do in those situations that you get a call like that?
I know Brian Craig personally. I'm going to give him a call.
You go for it. because you don't know that the criminal might not be out at the corner of your street or at the end of your driveway to do you harm, but it could be somebody from another state or out of the country that has your address here in the United States that can then do the street view and zoom around and look everything and can convince you 9 ways that they're going to do you harm and break in on you. So don't be panicked. Pretty much hang up that phone and get with the sheriff's office and tell them, this is really weird. Somebody's going to kick in my red door. Can you please come right now? And they're going to come and check it out and see. But if there's a church nearby, they can plainly see that. It's on Google Earth. This is Topeka Church of the Brethren, and we're down here. And if you don't go ahead and wire in this money, we're coming after you. They may not even be thousands of miles away, but you're none the wiser. So be careful. Today, in an age of a mailing address, it can come back to be used against you. So just please share that information with your friends and those that will be watching the public access channel. It's important. Think before you jump and go, oh my goodness, no, please don't hurt me. I will go get you that money. That's all they are wanting. They're not going to hurt you. They have no plans to hurt you. They are doing it for the cash on that. And I know Dawn's got some parting words to say in evaluation time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dawn.
So we want to thank you all for being here. We do ask, if you don't mind, to give us a little information in our evaluation. Will help us with the reports. There's also on the table back in the corner, there's some additional information there. So if you visit it and pick it up, if you have any questions, you have all of us. We can maybe answer a question or get you in contact with someone that can. But we thank you for being here today. Hope you will share what you learned with others, and hopefully went home or going home with at least one new piece of information, if not more. So again, thank you all for attending.